Welcome to the Badass Ladies Club. I'm Lawrie Wallace, and I'm here with my friend Jessica.
Hello.
We're also here with our good friend Mandy Hancock.
Hello, ladies.
We are so excited to be here for episode 5. And we're really trying to grow this following and create this bigger, more inclusive community. So get online and follow us on Instagram, Facebook. You can watch us on YouTube. You can check out our TikTok, and obviously go to www.badassladiesclub.com, and you can check out our website and see what's going on in our worlds. So today we're hanging out with Mandy Hancock. She is the badass of the week that we named a few episodes ago. She's a fierce mama bear to 4 awesome children. She's a devoted wife. She is obviously OG Badass Ladies Club and one of our very best friends. Mandy is also a lady entrepreneur and the owner of Prominence Parlor. She also founded Blissful Birth Childbirth Education. And she's kind of a do-it-all lady, and we're so excited to have her here.
We're so happy you're here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, record with us today. So before we get started, it's time to name this week's Badass of the Week.
That's right. So this week's Badass of the Week is a friend of mine. Her name is Missy, and she is the host of the Dirty Minds podcast. She's actually the one who got us the hookup here.
Yes.
So shout out to Missy.
Thanks,
Thank
Missy.
you. So she hosts Dirty Minds podcast. She is the founder of Explore Box, which is a quarterly subscription box for sexual health and wellness. And she does injections. I went to beauty school with her. So we started out doing hair together in hair school. And I have had the pleasure of watching her career evolve from hairdresser to doing injections to now being an awesome lady entrepreneur. And
I love everything that Missy's doing.
yes,
Like,
I love
her podcast
everything
is
she's
great.
doing. Her social media presence is
The quarterly subscription box
Beyond
is
awesome.
These
awesome.
boxes
Yeah.
sound amazing.
They really are.
you need to get you one.
I do.
Because it's so awesome. I subscribe just like to help. You got to help out your girlfriends. And
right.
so I've been
It's-
getting
yeah.
these boxes. They're so cool. They're so fun. And
it's an education, man. Like
it's an education.
It's the
for
things
sure.
that they didn't teach you in sex ed when you were growing up, for sure.
Yeah. So we're so excited. So Missy, shout out. We want you on the podcast.
Come
Please
on the
join
podcast,
us.
Missy.
And we're excited to have you.
Yay. So let's get into this week's episode, which is really just a opportunity for us to jam with Mandy today and talk about some of what you've observed so far listening to the podcast and things that maybe have resonated with you, because we've already unpacked a lot around self-healing and figuring out who you are.
Well, so far I have loved everything that you guys are doing with this. I just feel like there's such a need for it, and the topics are all so just of the times and, current, and it's just interesting to hear 2 ladies who I love so much discuss these topics that, sometimes just don't get brought up because some of them are a little bit touchy. And I feel like it's important to have those hard conversations.
And you know what? Cheers to that. Because we didn't.
Cheers.
Cheers. Oh my.
Cheers to our
Clink.
got it.
Mandy across the table.
You guys are pros. I believe in you. There you go.
Yes.
Nice job.
All right.
How to spill, bringing it back down home.
Okay, that's better.
Okay.
Mm,
Yes.
mhm.
So now we can really get started.
Wet the palate. Mhm.
Yes.
Now we're good. So yeah, talking about healing and things that don't come up a lot that maybe should. That's something that I think as the community of the Badass Ladies Club starts to develop and evolve, that we all understand that we're not really in that alone, that even though we may be experiencing things that are similar and sometimes we feel the same way, that it's also really liberating to hear that other people are struggling with some of the same things in their lives. And having those resources, I think, is really important and
So
a big
important.
reason why we've all been able to stay so close as friends, and to be able to share that with other people is magic. I like it.
I love it. I love how relatable everything is. Just like you're saying, you come up with this tough topic that you think might be just, exclusive to you, when really everyone is having their own version of, an experience like that.
Yeah.
And to just even be able to talk about the different experiences, it just makes it more relatable to a broader spectrum of people.
Absolutely. So one of those things that I feel like myself and, Jessica also in the pursuit of the podcast is that becoming a lady entrepreneur, like we discussed, we didn't really think about the podcast being like a business until we started doing it. And we were like,
oh, this is a
so
job.
Yeah.
It's an
It's
investment.
going to be work.
Yeah.
Okay. But you have had that knack for like lady entrepreneur instincts, I feel like, for so much longer than I personally have.
And same. Yeah.
So yeah, talk to us about what you connect with the idea of being a lady entrepreneur, because you own your own salon and you have a childbirth education business and you also have 4 children and multiple things going on, like how the heck are you killing it like that?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is just being able to do things the way that I want when I want to. And that was probably the first thing that inspired me to just go out on my own and do it, And I think that a lot of the time we scare ourselves into not taking initiatives on big steps like that. But it's just so important to take that first step. One of my favorite quotes is one from Martin Luther King, and it's take faith in the first step. You don't have to see the whole staircase. You just have to take that first step.
I love that.
Yeah.
And that really resonated with me the first time I heard it. And I thought, gosh, if I can just take the first step, then we had been talking earlier about how the universe, when you're on the right path, it just begins to unfold.
Mm-hmm.
If you're doing what you're meant to be doing, opportunities just arise. And it's really up to you to just take them, And so that's another thing that, apart from just figuring out what that first step is and taking it, taking those opportunities when they show up too.
Yeah.
You have to be bold enough to take the first step and then to continue taking the next step as those opportunities come up and arise, which is exactly what you guys have been doing.
Yeah. And, one thing that I so admire about you, Mandy, that has been such a huge lesson for me, because I feel like you were way better at this much earlier on than Lawrie and I ever were, was this idea of being part of someone's journey and people moving on and cheering them on for it.
Absolutely.
It took Lawrie and I a long time to be able to see someone move on and be, I don't want to say happy for them, because I'm happy for my friends, but
I know what you mean.
All 3 of us have worked together in the same salon. You and Lawrie have worked together in multiple salons before. And that I just know from past conversations that whenever I've told you like, well, so-and-so, has moved on and done this and done that, and I'm really heartbroken, that you're always the first one to say, well, good for her.
Right.
And that I'm like, damn, like
I should be more like Mandy.
I should be more like Mandy. Like, I'm always like, but what about me?
Yes.
It's easy to be that way.
It is. And so,
and your feelings are valid.
I know. I just feel now looking back on it, now that I'm getting older and I've learned so much from you through our friendship and watching you do so many amazing things on your journey, that I'm like, how could I ever be upset about that? Like, look at her go. She's so freaking awesome. And so thank you for teaching me that lesson in life. It's been
that means so much
needed.
lady,
It's big
to know that I've inspired you in that way. It is so important, and it's not always easy. Growth is hard for the person who's going through it and for everyone who's affected by this person going through growth, but to be happy for everyone and anyone who's on their own journey and working towards becoming the best version of themselves, that's just part of your journey too, to get better at doing that. And you know what it feels like when you are able to just drop the personal feelings about it. And like I said, your feelings are valid, be upset for a second and then be like, okay, I'm good, and good for her, good for them, whoever it is, whatever they're doing.
I'm what else is funny about that though, is I do think the more that it happens, the better you get at it, because the struggle comes into, I can't believe they're leaving me.
Yeah.
It's me, but nobody's leaving you. Like, just because people move on to new projects and new events, like, if you were really meant to be in each other's lives and you really do love and care about each other and you're supposed to be in each other's worlds, moving into new projects isn't going to change that. And so, and I do think that we talked about boundaries in a previous episode,
and Mandy was the badass of the week for our
Yes.
boundaries episode
and I don't
reference.
know that I understood how much evolving on your business projects meant that you had to have boundaries between how I feel about things personally and how I'm going to operate things in my business and how I'm going to structure things with my family. So all of these things can work together seamlessly. Like that is a big undertaking. And that doesn't happen without people saying, this is how I want things structured in my life. And that might not be what your life looks like. And that might not be what you want for my life. And that's all okay. But that's what I'm doing anyway. And that takes a sense of bravery that I am still getting used to. Like it is really unfamiliar to be like, so I'm doing this. And I realize that what I'm doing might make you uncomfortable, but I trust our relationship and I trust that I'm doing what's right for me and I believe it. And so I know that things might be weird for a minute, but we're going to get through it and get to the other side. And that is magic, I think, for women to take permission to do what they need to do and to know that even if things are rocky on all fronts of it, that it's kind of supposed to be that way.
Totally. Perfectly said.
So yeah, I'm into it.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about taking huge risks a little bit because you are the queen of taking ridiculously huge risks at times where I'm like, seriously?
I feel that.
Seriously,
Yeah.
Mandy. Like, oh my gosh. So how do you get so ballsy to do things like birth babies and renovate houses and then flip houses and then decide to, you do it all.
All while birthing at home. And
Right.
I'm like, what? Like, it's so
That's
awesome.
a really good question. I feel like some of it is just in my makeup, but I also think that through experience of taking risks, I know that is where the real growth happens. And that's where, change really happens. And growing is hard, change is hard. But the good things in life are things that you have to work for a little bit, at least. And getting out of that comfort zone is crucial to growing and to making things happen. You get comfortable, and comfortable's good if you're chill there. But if you want something bigger and better, no matter what it is, you're going to have to take some initiative. And taking the initiative usually means taking some kind of a risk.
Yeah.
As long as it's calculated, and you're making educated decisions, I feel like you're not just throwing, everything to the wind and it becomes less risky. The more research that you do, it's like I said about taking that first step, you have to figure out what you want first and then do the research on how to get it. And if that means finding a mentor, someone who's done what you're trying to do, that is my number one advice, for wanting to do something big. You're not quite sure how, and you're scared, talk to someone who's done it. Listen to the exact steps that they took and see if you can apply that to your journey, and follow in their footsteps. And it gets less scary when you come at it from that perspective. The more educated you get on whatever risk it is that you're about to take, it's less scary when you're going at it with a clear head and a clear plan.
Yeah, I think that, and especially because I've always said, up until very recently with doing this podcast, I've never wanted to be a business owner.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed like too much responsibility for me. Like that can be someone else's thing. I like clocking in, clocking out, and going home and not having to worry about it. And now here I am working full time at the salon, and every single spare
Yes.
hour, which is not a lot,
Yeah.
that I have is spent researching and doing things for this podcast. But what I'm learning is that you don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Right. It's been done.
It's been done. There's literally a formula for that.
Yep.
And so, just taking what works for you it's a no-brainer, really. And that's not to say it's easy by any means. It's been hard, but
It's easier than you thought it was going to be.
Yes, exactly.
Well, and when you're really committed and passionate about something, it's still work and you're still tired,
But you're
but
happy
you're
to do
so
it.
excited about what
Yes.
you're doing and creating that it becomes really fluid and kind of second nature. So,
Yeah.
and the hardest part, like the risky parts are, because taking risks, I feel like you get better at, like you said, the more that you do it, but you also realize that like you're not going to die,
Yeah,
like
right.
that
You'll be
most
fine.
of that is in your head about how scary whatever is,
It is.
and then
in your
once you
head.
do it and you survive it, you're like, oh, look, I could probably stand to do a little
Look
more of
what I
that in my
did.
life,
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
it'll be okay.
Yeah. And I think that, was it Tony Robbins who said, if you're not growing, you're dying? Or maybe he
I
got
think
that from someone else.
I don't know who
I've
that
heard
came from.
a similar quote,
Yes.
and that's true,
But if you're not growing, you're dying.
It
And
might have been Zig Ziglar. We'll look it up.
We'll look it up.
But
Yes.
it's a great
good quote,
and
nonetheless.
it's totally true. That it's because, even comfort zones, when you were saying, like if you're comfortable somewhere and that's okay, it also means that you're completely okay with, and I can only speak for myself in this, when I'm comfortable, I'm like, okay, so am I going after the things that I've always said, Lawrie, you should go after this, And most of the times when I'm really comfortable, I just don't have space to do that, And as soon as I make space in my life to do it, well, then I have to, like there's no way around it. Once that commitment has been made, it goes all in. So it's been a wild journey so far, but watching you do it
once
over
the
and
ball
over
gets
has been
rolling,
awesome.
It's just like a snowball effect,
Yes.
And it's, again, taking that first step. It's just the catalyst to making those dreams come true. It's just the very beginning of it. And taking that first step is probably the hardest part, because then the ball gets rolling and the law of attraction starts working and you start bringing all these awesome new opportunities to you, and you're more excited about it and confident about taking them. And then before you know it, you have your podcast.
Right.
You're sitting
here we
in
are.
a real studio. Yeah. Being badass ladies
oh my gosh, here
with
we
a
are.
club.
That's good. I know, right? Welcome to the club. So, the Badass Ladies Club was the action steps came after we had some time to get really quiet in COVID lockdown. And your quarantine with the family definitely sparked some massive, scary, huge steps for you guys. What came out of your quarantine besides a new baby?
Well, and to be clear, because you were pregnant, when did you get pregnant? February?
We found out in February.
Yes.
It was early
Lawrie
February.
and I were in
Before
Costa Rica.
COVID.
Yeah.
Y'all
Before
were in Costa Rica.
Yes.
And then
Because I
before
remember
COVID.
we were coming back and
It
you were
seems like 2
I
years
have
ago.
to talk to you.
Yeah.
I need to talk to you right
Gotta
now.
tell you guys
And I was
something.
like, oh my God, she's pregnant.
It's kind of an
Fourth
easy
time's a
guess
charm.
with you.
Yeah, right? What could it be? A
Right.
surprise.
Yeah.
So quarantine and new baby. Yes, 3 weeks ago, baby Lexi arrived. She's perfect and precious. It was a really crazy pregnancy, having everything go on with COVID and these huge changes that you're talking about that we made because of COVID, which in a way I have to say thank you. I mean, if there's one thing I can thank this damn virus for, it was, lighting the fire for us to make this big change. So we had a 5-year plan where we have land, 17 acres on the Brazos, and
so beautiful.
It is gorgeous. We love it. Raw land. So in the past couple of years, we've got a camper, we've got water out there, we have power now. So we've been roughing it for a while, going out there just for day trips, and then we got the camper. We started staying the night out there. We've just fallen in love with this place. And we have 4 kids. We're basically living in a camper on our land right now because we sold our house. The 5-year plan was to keep working and keep slowly building up this land and eventually build my other, Prominence Parlor 2.0.
Yes.
And our house, our forever house that we're going to raise our kids in and have them come home for Christmas with the grandkids one day. COVID pushed us to go ahead and start doing that sooner than later. So we sold our house in July. Huge move. We moved in with my mom.
Yeah.
Huge move.
Giant.
With our 3 kids at the time and 2 pets. And
one on the way.
And now we've got 4 kids. We're living with mom sort of during the week while I homeschool the kids. That was another thing that COVID kind of pushed me to do. I'd always been interested in it, but we just didn't do it. We went the normal quote route of just doing, public school for kinder. And now we've got first grade and pre-K and we're homeschooling. So we're spending the weekends out at the land. The foundation on the salon is poured and we're framing this next week. So things are happening and way quicker than we ever imagined them to. So it's totally crazy and I'm way out of my comfort zone, and that means that I'm growing and the big things are happening. So
well, lady, if I
thing.
know anyone is a manifestation master,
womanifest,
it is Mandy Hancock. Like, you have manifested the most amazing things in your life, and I know that if anyone can be a mother of 4, one of them being a newborn, homeschool, build a salon, have a childbirth education business. You know, I'm like, yeah, she can do it.
Totally.
For sure.
Doing it.
Right. Like it or not, here we are.
Exactly. Some days I question my choices,
What
but
have
here
I
we
done?
are. Yeah. Rocking it.
It's good times, man. So I think it's so interesting because I remember after you had your second child, you were really passionate about birth education. That both of the births that you had had up to that point had been really transformational for you, and they were both so different. And just that experience, you really had it on your heart that you wanted to get into childbirth education. So talk a little bit about that shift, because what I remember about that time is that before you had babies, you were a full-time hairdresser, that's what you did with your full-time working life. And then becoming a mom, you worked a little less, but you still did hair with so much of your time and space. And so then you add the second baby to the mix, and want to take on this new passion. So talk a little bit about why you wanted to get into childbirth education, because it was a big shift.
Huge shift. So before I got pregnant with Monroe, I didn't want to have kids. Actually, before I met Andrew, I should say, who's my husband, I didn't want to have kids, which is funny to say because I've got 4.
Yeah, crazy.
It was almost like you not wanting to own your own business. It just seemed like a lot of work, and I'll let other people do that. And but we got pregnant with Monroe, and obviously it was life-changing. I knew that if I ever did have a kid, I wanted to try to have a natural birth. My mom had all of us naturally, and I had a friend who years ago, when I didn't want kids, had her babies at home, and I was like, what?
People do that?
I didn't even know that was a thing. Yes, I thought that's weird, but then I did more research on it, and I took a childbirth education class myself and really prepared for the birth of my first baby. And I did have Monroe naturally in a birth center, and it was really long and really hard. And I immediately was like, I don't want to do that ever again.
I remember that conversation.
I remember that. Yes.
And then we tried for Betty, number 2. And, it took a while. It took a year, and we experienced a loss in between. And that was hard after just getting pregnant with Monroe. And I just thought, this is so tough. And I started to kind of talk a little bit about that with some of my clients and some of my friends. And I was so surprised to see how many women, 1 in 4, experience miscarriage. Yeah. And so I thought, this needs to be talked about more. And that was just kind of inspiring to me to want to, like you were saying earlier, you're going through these struggles, but you're not alone. Nope. And so I had Betty at home, and it was amazing. Quick, easy birth. She was 9 days late. I wanted to die every day.
In August.
In August, we were like a 40-day stretch of triple digits. It was so hard. But she blessed me with an easy short delivery. So like 7 hours start to finish. And then she was there, and it was at home, and it was amazing. And I had taken another little birth class. Andrew and I did. It was like a refresher course since we had already taken a birth education class with Monroe. And I just felt so prepared, mentally, that I knew that had so much to do with this amazing birth that I had. And it really was transformational in that I knew that I had to help other women who, wanted to be more educated about the decisions that they're making regarding their birth plan and how they wanted to go about this massive moment in their life. Being pregnant and giving birth it's a transformational shift. You change after that. And it can be such a wonderful experience. And, status quo for such a large amount of women is just not great, and it's not very educated, and they're just kind of putting their hands and their lives and their plan and everything in the hands of doctors and, people who don't have a personal relationship with them. And they just kind of are trusting this system that is, a lot of times goes fine, but there's a really scary, severe maternal morbidity rate in the USA, right, which is shocking. And I found out too about, women of color having a 2 to 3 times higher maternal death rate. And so I wanted to know more about that.
Absolutely.
And I wanted to
Find
teach
out.
people more about that. And, I don't want any of my friends dying, having, different interventions that could cause maternal morbidity. And so that after Betty's birth, I just thought, you know what, this is so natural and can be so amazing. If more people knew that it could be like this, they'll have that experience. And so anyway, I took it running. And of course, right after Betty, I started Prominence Parlor. I opened up that business with an infant. And then a year after that, I was like, oh, I'm getting a little comfortable. Maybe I'll, get my childbirth education certificate, because I had been thinking about it and I just didn't, because, I had a baby and a business and all this stuff, 2 babies. And so I started going through the training actually after I had Mark.
Right.
So I was going to get my certification.
Right.
And then I got pregnant.
You got pregnant again.
I got
with
pregnant
a
again.
third.
With a third.
And you're like,
Yeah. I was like, I can't do that. It's too much. I actually did sign up. I paid the deposit and then I said, never mind. I can't right now. And that's okay. Knowing your boundaries.
It's totally okay.
Right.
Right.
And so I had Mark in a hospital, which was not the plan.
First time I'd done that. You're like,
shocked.
First time I'd done it.
Yes.
I was shocked. I didn't want that to happen, but it turns out I had a great experience. And so I ended up having high blood pressure at the end of the pregnancy, and it was gestational hypertension. I had to transfer care at 39.5 weeks, 40 weeks is full terms. 37 is. So he was done, but I had to make that change because of the high blood pressure. And I was so scared and so nervous, and I hated it. I cried. I called you and I cried.
Yeah.
Lawrie came over and watched the kids at 3:00 in the morning so that we could go and get.
It was not the plan.
It was not the plan.
Yeah.
I had to be induced. It was crazy. But I had a great experience, and I can attribute that to knowing, still what my boundaries were as far as birth and what I wanted there. I wanted a natural birth. I got it again. They knew that, and they not once asked me if I needed anything that wasn't going to go along with my plan.
Right.
So having that experience was what really pushed me to, like, after I had Mark, I had a newborn baby. I went ahead and signed up for the birth education training, because I knew, okay, you can have a good birth in a hospital. And now I've had this experience. I have this to add to the table.
Right. So here you are. You've had a birthing center birth, a home birth, and now a hospital birth.
Yep. So I'd done it all.
Covered it.
Yeah, covered it. So that's when I thought, okay, I have I've had these experiences for, my own personal reasons, but I also think that I can use these experiences to help other families get empowered and have their blissful birth, to have that great experience, no matter what kind of birth you're planning or where you're planning on having it. Even a planned C-section can go in more knowledgeable about the procedure and be able to make good decisions to still have a good experience where that's concerned, and have a less of a horrible outcome, which does happen sometimes. I think it's so important to know what you're going into and to be educated about it, and to be able to pick care providers who are they're trusted. And
that's true of any type of
type,
time that you are sick or hurt or having a baby or doing, having the people around where your intentions are.
Absolutely. So
makes all the difference in the world as far as the support and you being able to see through to the other side of that the way that, is best for everybody. So
exactly.
And you wouldn't have that without birth education.
Right.
I love that the way that this story unfolds. I don't have kids, but I do know that every time you've been pregnant and had a kid, that I am so consciously aware of what I don't know about birth and having babies. Even when you were pregnant with Mark, before you found out you were pregnant with Mark, we booked my 40th birthday vacation to Greece, and you and Andrew decided you were going to come to the other side of the world and celebrate with us, and then found out you were having a baby and you were going to be flying internationally, late in your second trimester, wasn't it? Where were you when you went?
It was second trimester, just barely into second trimester. And I remember that because I could drink wine.
Well, and I was like, will they even let you on the plane? Like, I was really panicking that you weren't going to be able to go.
Yeah.
And then I was like, God, there's so much I don't know about pregnant people flying. Like, and I had to learn those things so I could like put my own anxiety to rest. And we had a great time in Greece. It was
the best
magical.
trip
You guys looked like you had the best time. Those
It was
pictures
the
are
best
epic.
trip ever.
Yeah.
And I think I was like 18 weeks pregnant.
Yeah. But
I had a bump and I had people giving me the eye.
I'm sure. I remember. Like,
What is this chick doing? She's obviously pregnant. Why is she traveling?
It was awesome fun. And I guess bringing that up was just that there are so many things that you hear about being pregnant, birth, pregnancy, pregnant women that were just ideas that were handed to me throughout my whole life that I just took for granted were true. That the more that I learned, the more I realized that that stuff is not true. And that there are 100 ways to get to the same end result of having a baby at the end of it. And
Absolutely.
that everyone has a direction that they go with that. And all of those things are perfect and
Yeah.
valid. And,
Yep.
and that's true. And I don't know why I feel like, because I'm not a like human mom, that I can look at it from the outside looking in and say that everyone, when they have a newborn baby, they do things so differently. And it's all perfect because it's their baby, you know, and they know what's best. And that when things get, when wires get crossed, it's when other people try and get in the middle of it and predetermine what's good for somebody. Because, man, having humans, that is an intimate connection. Like
Yes,
other
for
people getting in the middle of that only makes things harder and
Yes.
puts more stress on a
So,
situation.
You guys, if you don't know, Baby Mama is one of my favorite movies
It's
in the world. Okay. So, how Mandy and I very much differ is that, you know, that scene in Baby Mama where she's at the childbirth class and Tina Fey and Amy Poehler are there together. By the way, I'm Amy Poehler's biggest fan.
She's so
Love
good.
her.
And the childbirth educator says, now who is going to, I don't know, she says something about drugs, you know, inject themselves with drugs for the comfort of themselves and not their own baby. And Amy Poehler's like, what? That
Give
was
the
me.
shot.
That was me.
I'll take that.
I wanted the drugs.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And now that like I have seen Mandy go through so many amazing different births and like what an array there is, that if I were to have another child, I would take a Mandy Hancock class with Blissful Birth and like learn about other experiences. But for my first, I was totally in this mindset of like, Jessica, now's not the time to be a hero. Just make yourself
Just be
comfortable.
You were
Yes.
a hero. Are
Just
you kidding?
yeah, you had a
Like
baby. You're a hero.
so I went 41 weeks.
Yeah.
I was induced. I got the drugs. I was there like 9 dilated, and I was texting everyone.
Everyone.
I'm at a 9. I'm great. Like,
It's like,
not
are you okay?
feeling anything. Everyone's like, is she really okay? I'm like, I'm great, you know. But I know that probably if I did not have those drugs, I would not be sending out happy drugged up text messages to everybody. But
Probably not at a 9.
right. But that no matter how you do it, it is okay. And that I really was one of those that I just trusted my doctor, and I was like,
That's great.
Whatever you say, dude. Like, I
That
don't
is
know what I'm
also-
doing, but I took one at the hospital, but I feel like if I had to do it over again, I would have gone outside the hospital and like educated myself more for
He
sure.
also wasn't just a doctor. He was the doctor that you've had your whole
Well,
life.
and he had done my whole family. Like,
He's
he delivered
all
my
the families and,
cousin. So
all
I,
the babies.
of
Like
course
he was
you
a family
trusted him.
doctor.
yeah, I did. So it wasn't like a new doctor, you know,
He wasn't like the doctor on call or anything.
right.
Like,
So I did trust him, and I had a great delivery, and it was amazing. But anyway, so yes, you got your childbirth certification. You had Mark in a hospital, and Lexi,
And then
little Lexi.
And then sweet little Lexi.
And there were 4.
And then there were 4. And then there were 6. Yeah. I mean, not kids, but we
I'm like,
have 6
what?
people in our family now.
Where's my drink?
Yeah,
right.
Like, where's my drink?
It's hot in here.
It's hot in here.
No,
Six
and,
total.
4
And
kids.
Lexi was in a hospital.
Yes. Same thing happened with her. I planned the home birth, and there's this saying in the birth world, you know, birth is unpredictable. And that is so true. Like 100% of the time, you can have this great plan and you can be as educated as you can be. And sometimes birth just takes a turn, you know. What happened with me again was the gestational hypertension, which is a common well, I wouldn't say it's common, but it is something that can totally happen with pregnancy, especially of advanced maternal age.
Ooh,
Oh, you're geriatric.
You were
pregnant.
Geriatric pregnancy.
It's the most
dumbest term
ridiculous
ever.
thing I've ever
I
heard.
hated it, but here I was,
Right.
36 and
geriatric.
and with high blood pressure, like a, geriatric pregnant person. So anyway, that happened again. And we induced a little bit earlier this time because I started to have those bouts of high blood pressure. And so I was really nervous about that too. Even though I'd had a great birth with Mark, he was 39.5 weeks.
Yep.
Lexi was 37.5 weeks. And so it was 2 weeks earlier. And I just thought, oh God, my body's not ready. She's not going to be ready. And this is all stuff that, my internal monologue goes there. And then I say, shut the hell up.
Right.
She's fine. You're fine. This is going to be great. And it was. So, and matter of fact, her birth was my easiest. I got induced and I for hours was like, this isn't working. I don't
Something's
think.
wrong.
And they're like, no, you're having contractions consistently. I was like, really? And then I got to a 9 and was like, oh yeah, this feels right. And, and I said, I felt that pressure and that urge to push. And I said, I'm pushing a little bit. And she came out, her head came
There
out.
she was.
Yeah. My midwife was cracking up. She was like, you're pushing a little bit and you're having a baby. So anyway, yeah. And I've already got the certification. I've already got blissful birth, so this is just another little thing that I can add to my stories, to help relate to people who have different experiences with every single birth. Cause usually it is different, even if it's in the same place, it's still going to be a different experience. And with her, I'll say, I got my water birth. I wanted one with every kid and I didn't get it. Monroe, I labored in the tub forever and to the point where I was super uncomfortable and I had to get out of that dang water. I was a prune and the tub was hard, and so I got out. Betty, her head was born in the water and then she had shoulder dystocia. So she got stuck on the way out and this was my home birth. So I got out of the tub. We changed positions and she came right out. It all happened in seconds. Mark came so hard and fast. They were filling up the tub in the hospital. They had the wheelchair at the ready to take me to the tub. And I said, I'm
just
pushing.
kidding.
And he came out. Yeah. And so anyway, Lexi, we didn't want that to happen this time. So I got to the tub pretty early on and my blood pressure went down because I was just chilling in this hot water. And this hospital, my midwife, anytime she has to transfer, she transfers here because they really are so supportive to moms who want to do the natural birth, who want to do the water birth. They have a midwife there. She delivered Mark. She delivered Lexi. They are really into just that whole, natural homeopathic way of mom's body, knowing what to do, trusting the process and only intervening if there's a medical necessity, which in my case, the induction, was
What a
medically
gift
necessary.
to have
Such
that.
a
Yeah,
gift.
what
And
a
it's
gift.
so important to
Yes.
know that because if I had transferred somewhere else, it could have been a different outcome. But they were great. And I got the water birth and they had oils diffusing and I got an herbal bath with her afterwards. And we did delayed cord
That's a
clamping.
thing?
Yes, I know.
I was cheated.
I need to take a class.
You need to
You
take
have
a
another
class.
baby, like,
No,
gotta
I
fix
have
that.
I'm not having another
You're not having
baby.
another
Right now, at least. I just
one day, if it
one
happens,
day, if it
me.
happens,
Yeah.
which I know you
Mandy's
will.
gonna be my girl.
So momming, because, all this birth and baby, after you go through all of this stuff, then there's this new human there. And that has been such an interesting experience for me with both of you. I'm hopelessly attached to all of your kids. But in a way that has been really fulfilling for me because having kids was just not in my journey, but not momming and being a support to my friends, because momming is hard.
my gosh.
Just from observation only,
I could not do it without you, literally.
Amen.
And so it's been really cool for me to get to not be the mom, but to have the energy, time, space, availability to rescue the moms and be there with the little ones as they grow up. So let's talk a little bit about momming and not momming, because I feel like it's a weird subject for people when they don't have kids.
The best auntie ever is the next best role to mothering my own kids.
Agreed.
I have nephews and nieces, and I love that role. if they weren't my kids, I wouldn't be like so into parenting them or momming them.
Yeah,
if that
no.
even makes sense.
Yeah.
Because to have that role is so great. You do get to be, and you are such an amazing auntie. The kids love Auntie Lawrie. You just were over earlier this week bringing them birthday presents and doing your auntie thing. And that is so important, not just to them to have those relationships, but to me.
Yeah.
I need that help. Even just you coming over and we talked, we sat on the couch for a bit, looked at some pictures.
Yeah.
We had a good time and we didn't really do anything except for just hang out.
Yeah.
And it was such a relief to just have your presence there. And the crock pot meals too. Just
Feeding
have to
people.
mention because we ate one last night.
Yay.
Every way that you've stepped into that auntie role is so important to me and has made such a huge difference in my entire family's life.
Yeah.
It takes a tribe.
It sure does. I mean, and just as recently as last month, Lawrie and I had to go down to New Braunfels for some work, and I had Adelaide, and I was like, and Lawrie was like, I'll just go with you. And when you're in class, I'll hang out with her and it's fine. And I was like, really? She was like, yeah. And so while I was in class, I knew that Adelaide was safe and taken care of. And Lawrie took her on like a pancake picnic.
We had pancake picnics.
Took her to the dollar store.
We went to the dollar store.
Took her around because Lawrie had a little bit of work to do too. So took her to the office and Adelaide just hung out, and I was like, what would I ever do without
We had the best time.
besties who, take on that aunt role.
Yes.
And
It's priceless.
Lawrie, I just want to speak to, we've all been friends for a really long time. And I know that through being friends with Lawrie and you not having human children that I feel from the outside looking in, have been judged by some people, maybe not but yeah, okay, judged. I would just say judged for really? You don't have kids?
Oh, yeah.
You don't regret it?
All the time.
And that somehow takes away from your womanhood. And it's
That
such
drives me crazy.
bullshit.
Yeah,
It's totally
totally
Because to all those people who I've heard say those things to Lawrie, I want to be like, she is the best mom that I've ever met.
Yeah.
And she's a better mom to my kid sometimes than I am to my own kid,
Amen.
and
Part-time.
and that Lawrie is a maternal mother role in the salon and takes care of all of us. And it's just
She's such a nurturer.
yes. And that I think that momming comes naturally to us, whether we have the babies or not.
Yes.
Yes. Being maternal does not have really much anything to do with having children. And I think because I have that nurturer by nature instinct about me, I recognize it immediately in other people. And you and I have talked about this before. Betty. I mean, Betty is a baby, but she has a very
She's a little
maternal
mama.
instinct about her.
Mhm.
That is something that some people just have. And it's funny, the judgment about not actually being a legit woman if you don't have children. I've never really felt sensitive about that because I've always been really grounded in, if that's the direction my life is supposed to go, then I'll know that and it'll go there. And if it's not, then it won't. And then I also hear a lot about clocks ticking, and that random, you're running out of time situation, which I think is so interesting now because you hear about women older and older and older anymore having babies. You were a geriatric pregnancy at 36, but I see 55-year-olds having babies now,
Halle Berry had one at 50.
Totally. That's not totally out of the question, but that on the greater scale of things, most people who have felt that way about me don't usually talk directly to me about that. It is more I'm pretty intuitive when I'm present with people. And I feel that, I do think that, and we've talked about this a lot too, that there is a mom's club that happens with some people where if you're not a mom, then you're not in the club and that you will never understand where I'm coming from or that you're not as sensitive to things that moms have to deal with because you don't have children, so you don't understand. And that's something that makes me sad for them because I know that is not true for me.
Absolutely.
And so
I think that's a toxic culture.
yeah.
And that's happened where we work, where there have been at times we've had groups of people with us who are like, well, you just don't get it. And that was all before I had a child. And I
Because
was
you
like,
got a lot of that crap too before you had a child.
I did.
Yeah.
You know, that somehow my empathy, my love, my tenderness wasn't valid because I hadn't had a child.
Yeah.
And that I just didn't get it. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? Like, it just.
I think a lot of that, it is so toxic, but it's also, it's personal to them.
Mhm.
It has nothing to do with you or anybody who chooses or doesn't choose, just, you know, isn't a mom to biological children or adopted children, whatever. I just think that those people who have that kind of negativity have something else going on.
Always. Yeah. Projecting all of that.
Projecting.
So, it definitely takes a tribe.
Yeah.
And this, I do feel like there's this big shift with the maternal instinct in general that since about 2018, I have felt this push of the age of women, the age of the goddess, that the sacred feminine is making a rise in so many different parts of our culture and our world. It's coming together, and it is, you know, we talked about you early on in the episode, is like you have this like rad, fierce mama bear energy. And I feel that sometimes in so many different aspects of my life where I'm like, yeah, we're going full speed ahead right now. Like, it is a responsibility to step into the greatness that we are, and that for, you know, the last our second episode, I guess, where we talked about like the good girl, bad girl complex, you know, like as I'm feeling this push to step into the woman who I've always known that I was, but had all of this baggage I had to deal with to get through to the other side of her. The good girl in me sometimes is like, oh, no, Lawrie, you're not going to go there. Like, that is risky. That is going to push triggers and buttons. That's going to cause trouble for you in the future. And
you want to be a good girl.
You do. And that even up here, you know, on my podcast, talking all this big game about it, like I still have that voice in the back of my head. But what's carrying me is this knowing that I have that the world is changing right now. And there are women all over the world that are like, you know what? I'm done playing that game because this is where I'm at and this is where I'm going. So let's talk a little bit about moving into this age of the goddess, because I feel like a big cornerstone of that for my own growth has been my other goddess friends cheering me on and helping me through some of those old conditionings and those old stories I have that aren't serving my greater purpose. So like, how do we help each other move into this stage where we're really feeling our power and can take it on?
I think supporting each other and coming back to what you were saying earlier, Jessica, about being happy for others' successes, you know, and really trying to support and encourage other women and other people in general. But, you know, how important that is, just by having that mental shift, everything begins to change, you know? And so I think it starts with that. And I just think that when you can change your perspective in that way, that, you're more prone to support yourself and shut that inner voice up a little bit, you know, the one that keeps telling you, oh, no, you don't want to do that. You know, you're going to push boundaries or whatever. Instead, your goddess voice is coming out and you're being like, you know what? No way. I am doing this. And Jessica supports me and Mandy supports me and I support them. And it's just like fuel to the fire, you know?
You know, and I was thinking about this the other day, that when I was growing up, it wasn't cool to have girlfriends. It was cool to be the girl in the boy crowd, you know, and that girls were catty, girls were dramatic, girls were
high maintenance,
too much work. And that, you know, it was cool to be the girl with the boys,
hanging out with the guys.
Right. And that I'm so excited to be raising a child in this age of, just goddess power.
Right.
And that in our first episode, Lawrie, we talked about how in our tribe of women that we call each other goddess and queen, and that I learned that from you two. You guys have been friends way longer than I've been friends with you. And that when I started getting exposure to that and that kind of support, I was like, this is what I've always needed, because I never felt like I belonged with the boys, but it wasn't cool to have girlfriends, And so I just think I'm excited about where this shift is going. And I think that with the recent passing of RBG, that's even more to the forefront, I mean, she very famously said, women belong in places where decisions are being made.
Yes.
And that, it's time. And that, I'm just speechless at this point.
It's a little overwhelming sometimes.
It is. I love that thing that's going around where everyone's saying, okay, we have to be ruthless now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now
She
that
passed
Ruth
the
is
torch.
gone,
Yeah.
She has passed us the torch, and we cannot let her actions go in vain. You know,
Yeah.
it is our duty to take that torch and run with it.
Yes.
I know what I was going to say.
Tell me.
It's all coming back
wanna
to me
know.
now.
Yay.
I just got really overwhelmed for
That
a second.
happens to me
I'm
all the
sorry,
time.
guys.
All the time. Mom brain.
Mom brain. I think the other part of what I've learned from Mandy through the years of our friendship with being happy for people to move on and to have their own journey is that I've never known Mandy to come from a place of lacking, that it's always an abundance, that there's enough to go around, and that Mandy's light is never dimmed by someone else's light shining. And that is so powerful for me to watch. And it's just taken me a long time to get on board with that. And I don't know why. Maybe I need to go to therapy over that. But I just
kind of what this
we're
is,
having a breakthrough now.
We're having a breakthrough right now that it just took me a long time to get there, because I think that like we were saying earlier, it comes from a what about me kind of place.
You know what I read the other day, and I wish I could remember where I read this, but it was also when it's coming from that sense of lack, it's got a lot more to do sometimes with this idea that there's not enough to go around, but if I'm winning, that somebody else must be losing.
Right.
And so I will put myself in the losing space, because my first prerogative is
Let everyone else win.
you got to let everybody else win, because it's polite, Lawrie. You don't want to take too much of the spotlight. Like if you let other people win sometimes, then they will love you more. They will like you more. You will belong more. And so this idea that I can't shine too brightly because other people don't like that, and that I will throw myself into the fire to keep you warm. And and when I read that, I was like, whoa, maybe I do that a little bit. Like, why? Maybe that's why. But then the other biggest piece and I'll just speak for myself, the journey of being happy for people when they move on, for me, has been so much about why, like we said earlier, oh my God, they're leaving me, so you can take it personally. But even if you can step out of it and not take it personally, that there's something that they're doing that you want to do too. And you're kind of pissed that you can't do it.
Or that you haven't done
or
it
that
yet.
you haven't, but you can do it.
Yeah.
And you're just not doing it because it's not your time, or you haven't done the work, or you're not ready. But whatever it is, that hits you in a place where the reaction for me a lot of times is anger, or to feel hurt, because I'm so freaking sensitive, crabby about everything. And so the more I've recognized that about myself, it makes it so much easier, even when people move on to things and I'm like, okay, I don't get it, but high five,
Right.
Your
go
journey.
do it. And so it's okay with me when people move on to things that I personally maybe think are a bad idea or don't understand because of all these other circumstances. But I can really separate from this idea of that's not my path, my journey, my decision, and high five, go do it and see what happens. Because even if it takes them on a different direction, that is their own process, and everybody deserves that. Everybody deserves a chance to go and do things their way and see what happens with it.
Yeah.
So that's
I
helped
love
me a
that.
lot. I've had the best time talking with you guys
Yeah.
today. Like, this was a really
been so
special
great.
episode.
And
of,
Mandy, thank you for
Badass
being our
Ladies Club.
first guest.
Oh my gosh, you
You're
guys.
breaking it
Thank you
in.
so much for having me on. This has been so much fun.
We'll
I've
do it
just
again.
yes, I would love to be
Yes.
a regular guest on the
Totally.
show.
Yes.
Honorary
So fun.
co-host.
I'm
for sure.
already thinking
Ooh.
of all the things. Yes,
We could talk for all day, I'm sure.
we really could.
Yes, we could.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us for Badass Ladies Club. Share this episode. Tell your friends about it. If there's something that resonated with you, we want you to hit us up on all the socials and definitely go check out the website. There's some really cool merchandise that is coming out and available. Mandy has the Badass box, and so that's all available to all of you guys. Hooray for episce 5.
Yes.
Hooray.
Cheers, ladies.
Cheers.
Ding, ding.
All right.
Look, pros.
Blinky. Bringing it back.